the reason I titled this like how to build $1 million team, and the surprising way we've done it that most business owners don't, is because one of the things that we have done on our team that I think is really, really different than how most people in our industry operate and think about team is, we were talking about this earlier today, and probably like at least 75% of our team members, past and present, so like in total, we were their first client. In their business.
One of the first, yeah.
Or one of the very first. Yeah. So like, I was Megan's first VA client, which is really fun to reflect back on. But I think obviously you guys all know this from talking about it in other ways and Happy Thoughts, but like, I think I was Sarah's one of her first, if not her first VA client. Our content person, we were her first client. Our podcast editor, first client. Multiple VAs we have, first client. I could go on and on, but it's been really cool. Also, like when I say first client too, I don't necessarily even like, I mean like fully outside of this space. So I want to talk about that in a second, but also these comments move and I don't want to miss yours. Hi Jess, she said this topic is so hard for me. I love that you're talking about it. Michelle says, oh my gosh, love that so much. Y'all have really grown together. We have. Yes, we have, Elisa. Yes, we really have. Hi Morgana. Mandy says, I have a question. You may talk about this, but I don't want to forget it. Totally. What do you discuss each month between the two of you in a meeting, say weekly or quarterly? Maybe numbers or goals or how you're working toward them. Okay, totally. We can get to that. I have a 50% chance of remembering that, and Megan has like an 85% chance of remembering it. So we're good. We totally got that. Hi, Diane. Oh, before I forget, while Megan writes that down, we're giving away Megan's hiring template.
I was just gonna write that down.
You're so good. See, we are the dream team. If you comment today, obviously, again, any comment counts. No specific thing, but Megan's hiring template is amazing. And obviously after today, I think y'all are gonna want more of it. So if you are interested, just any kind of comment on this video, we so appreciate you coming live with us, asking questions, like being here with us. So, you know, just a little thank you. Yeah, you guys did write the same thing. It was cute. Okay, so, oh no. Oh my gosh, hold on, sorry. This is totally my fault. I accidentally clicked on someone's picture instead of trying to see their comment. And now I have to go back. Okay, an important team member just left my team this week to go and build her own business. So this is so timely for me. Oh, so good. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so yeah, we have been most people on our teams first. And a lot of people on our team, like, were not from the industry at all. Did you announce the winners of the gift cards last week? Yes, we did. I want to celebrate them. I cannot remember exactly who it was though. I think one was Katrina Widener.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the other. Michelle, I will look and get back to you. But yes, they have been selected, and I believe have received their cards. Okay, so yeah, not from with like one person on our team is one of my cousins. She's amazing and has been with us for a while. Another person on our team actually used to work with my husband, and that's how she came. Someone on our team was a friend of Megan's, like so like random in some ways. And so I think like the important thing that we really want to communicate today, and we'll talk through like the specifics, is that like I feel like it can almost be like, that's not the dream team or something. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, actually like they're an amazing dream team, and we've built like such an amazing team, and we have built like $1 million team doing that. And so I think it's just really important where that, you know, idea that like someone has to know more than you, or you have to be able to like outsource your power to them or whatever in terms of team is not always true. This isn't like a case for don't hire someone that you're not their first client either, but it's just like broaden the scope with which we're thinking about things and broaden the scope with which we're looking at what matters in hiring and what creates a really amazing team. And so that's what we'll go through today, but like just wanted to share the specifics of that because I think it can be really eye-opening where sometimes it feels like we have to hire someone in this specific way. And that just hasn't been our experience.
And I think that we did a live stream on this. I can't remember which one it was, but basically about how like we talk a lot about finding the right fit person and like the qualities of that person and their personality and how they work and their values and all of that, rather than like a specific skill set or, you know, even just like knowledge in the industry. So like we've had a lot of people who, like Lacey said, haven't really had any prior history in the online space or even just like the technologies that we use and stuff like that. And so we've really like hired based on knowing that they're the right person and the right fit and fit into the business really well. And then we really pour into them to provide them with the resources and everything to train them into their role. And I think that that just like has worked out so well, both for us and for them, because I feel like that's, you know, the top feedback that we get from team is just like, this is so great. Like, thank you for like believing in me in this way and really like pouring into me and giving me this opportunity, because it really like lets them thrive in the role as well. Right.
Yes, absolutely. It's so true. Michelle says she has like a former student and is always thinking about humans in her life to pull in. Morgana has her brother working in her business and another brother contracting and thinks it's great. Yeah. Mandy said most of my most of my employees I have got a fit first and then train them. Exactly. Hi, Jen. Neela says, I'm sure you can go into this, but can you speak to the type of training that is required to get them from zero to impact? Absolutely. Hi, Milana. Yeah, totally. But I think what's like really helpful to see here that I think is just so important is that the biggest factor I think is fit and what you pour into it. Like that really is it. I think like if you absolutely have zero time, energy, or effort that you want to pour into your team at all, of course, you're going to have to hire someone that isn't brand new. However, like you're also, you know, hiring maybe not the right fit because you're just prioritizing like, do I have to do zero time training them? And like, I think that sometimes is the stuff that can like bite you in the butt long term, or short term, it seems like a good idea, but long term, like that isn't always there. And I think one of the benefits of how we've done it is that, and I'll just kind of speak to this first and then we'll go into specifics, but is that like, we know what's working in our business and then we train people based on that. And I think that that's where so many business owners kind of miss that step, is they almost feel like, well, let me hire a team and then they'll help me figure out what's working in my business. And I think that can get so sticky, right? Where you're almost putting the onus of success for your business on your team. And I think that, again, that's just like really like gray area, instead of kind of being like, well, we know like these 5 things work really well in our business, so we can train anybody up on those because we fundamentally know that that's what works. And so sometimes that's even better and easier for us. Like, I think it's why Megan and I have built such an incredible relationship over the years, because neither of us came into this with like preconceived notions. We've literally like built this business together by figuring out like what works best for us. Like Megan didn't come in being like, this is how I OBM or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
It was like, what's an OBM?
Yeah.
What do they do?
We'll figure it out as we go. You know what I mean? Yes, focus on training. Exactly. Hi, Aquila. Never thought about it that way. Awesome. Hi, Eloise. Yes, exactly. So, you know, kind of not putting it on this pedestal where like someone comes in and knows more than you do about your business. It's like, how can you know as much as you can about your business and then be willing to translate that? Something Megan and I talk about a lot is teaching your team to think how you think. And the reason that's valuable is because if you know your business really well, and then you help them understand your business really well, for us, that's when things take off. But it's because we also, like, I spent the time knowing that first. So that creates that. So, you know, that's something I would just like say as a starting point here. Like, if you're like, I don't even know what's working, like, you might not be ready to train a team member. Quite honestly, you might need to go back to be like, let me figure out what's working for me first. Like, a team member isn't necessarily going to be the one that sweeps in and fixes it, you know?
And I think that there's a difference between like hiring someone who is, for example, like, I don't know why this is the example that came to my mind, but like, for example, like hiring someone who is really skilled in Pinterest management or something, and hiring like a Pinterest manager to fit into your business, but you would still need to know your business and how that, like, how could fit in and what you're looking to get out of it. And then the Pinterest manager can bring their knowledge and skill set to that. But it's kind of like you need to kind of still have the ownership of like the business as a whole and really teach them how you think about your business so that they can kind of apply that Pinterest management style to your business specifically,
your
right?
Clients and your audience and all
Exactly.
of that. Yep.
Exactly. And I think like, you know, that's just an example of like how you wouldn't necessarily need to be training that person in the skills because they would already have it, but you still really, it's still about like pouring into them in the business and giving them kind of the knowledge that they would need to operate really well within your specific business and your clients and all of that, right?
I have so many thoughts on that. Mandy says she's been sharing that a lot more in her vision and her dream with her team this month. That's awesome. That makes it so much easier for them. And Michelle says, this is part of why I've been giving my team member a specific weekly task to take care of. It takes something off my plate and doesn't require me to have the full long-term vision completely formed. Absolutely. I think that the thing that's so important about what Megan just said is like, we get so like tool specific or something. Like, we think like, oh, a Pinterest manager will come in and drive traffic and that'll be it. And like, if they just know Pinterest skills, that's what matters. And like, knowing Pinterest skills is like this much a part of this much bigger picture of like what Megan just said. And so that's why like, we're just not a big fan of getting so skills focused, because it just like you lose the plot basically when it's not applied to like the uniqueness of your business, which is why even if you have a highly skilled team member, they're still going to need to be trained in so many ways about like how to think about operating within your business. And so being willing to like pour into that, or if you can't, have someone else that can. Like, I'm not always the one doing that, Megan is. But like, it's really hard, I think, when you're counting on that person's skill set to do the work instead of counting on their full understanding and knowledge about what's going on in your business, right?
Totally. I see that happening a lot with like Facebook ads as well, where like, because people kind of like, I feel like Facebook ads is just one of those things where people do really look at it as like, oh, this is like the secret ticket to, you know, like scaling my business fast and blah, blah, blah. And like, I feel like there are a lot of people that have a lot of experience, like a lot of great Facebook ads managers and that really know what they're doing. But I think that part of it too really needs to be like the business owner knowing how that fits in and what the overall, you know, game plan is, and bringing the Facebook ads manager into that together, right? Like, you kind of do need both. And so I think that that's like, whether you're hiring somebody who is already really experienced, or whether you are hiring somebody who you are pouring into actually training them, like we do most often. Like, I think that the kind of core principle of really like still holding the vision for them and really like connecting those dots, that still needs to be true kind of no matter what the situation is, right?
Yep, totally. I love that. Emily says my Pinterest manager was recommended and turned out to be my ideal client too. So keyword research was a dream. She searched for what she would look for herself. Exactly. Like, that's the stuff that matters, right? Hi, Emily. Yeah, Diane says same. She has a Pinterest manager, but what's most valuable to her is how deeply she gets me. Exactly. So, which brings us to another point that we talk about a lot in business, and I just think is so important as it relates to this is normalize feedback in your team and in your business. If you're going to be pouring into someone and training them, especially if you're training from the ground up, we have to make feedback such a normalized thing. Where I feel like the number one thing I see business owners get so freaked out about when they're building their own team is they almost don't want to like hurt anyone's feelings or say it in the wrong way or like give too much feedback or whatever. And so what we really try to do is like day one on our team being like, hi, you'll get a ton of feedback from us. That's how we operate around here. This doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's how we all roll. You should ask us for feedback. You should like, we try to make this like this hugely normalized thing. So that no one ever feels like they're in trouble or whatever when that happens, but also so we don't feel trapped. We're like, we've set up an environment where like feedback is negative and now we can't train, you know?
One of the things I found about feedback too is that I feel like it's just super helpful to, like, from the support provider perspective, that makes me know that I'm doing a good job or not, or like kind of get clarity on what the business owner's preferences are or something like that, where like that's how you learn is through feedback. If you don't get any feedback, the assumption is, well, I must be perfect. And then that's weird because you're like, well, no, I'm not, like, nobody's perfect, but like, this is kind of weird that I haven't gotten any feedback. So I guess I'm just going to keep rolling. And so I think that it just, even if it's positive, like, hey, this was great, like even just that reinforcement kind of thing can be super helpful just to give your team that consistent, like, idea of the what your preferences are, what you are liking, they could do better, like different tips and suggestions, like that kind of thing. I just think that that's so useful. And I think we can often think giving feedback can be really negative, or like there's too much like you're giving too much feedback or something like that. And from the support provider perspective, I find it to be super, super useful. I would much rather have more feedback than less, because that is just more knowledge for me, that I can like understand what is expected of my role and what, like, we talk a lot about, like, your team wants to make you happy. And so like the more kind of feedback that you're giving them, the more that is just there for them to learn what makes you happy so that they can do more of those things.
And also to see it's non-threatening, I think, you know what I mean? I think sometimes if we give feedback really infrequently, then it does feel like, oh my God, like maybe my job's on the line.
Yeah.
Or maybe, if you're giving feedback all the time and they see like, oh, well, that's never impacted my job or been like an issue or whatever, I think that's really helpful too, because it's like, we can all feel pretty neutral about it. Like, this is just literally neutral feedback, right, as opposed to like, like that big, like intense response that can come with it.
And then it's not like you need to take someone aside and be like, hey, we need to have a talk because this one thing happened. And it's like anxiety inducing and stuff, and makes this whole thing out of it. If you're like, we're just always giving feedback and always talking through things, then it doesn't become like a really big thing that, does create a lot of anxiety for anybody.
Yep, totally. Emily said that was like her biggest gripe as an HR manager, is people wouldn't give feedback often. Yep. Yeah, exactly, Lindsay. I think all of us, like, for the most part, if it's done in like a kind way, want feedback, right? Like, it feels good, even as a coach or whatever. But yeah, Michelle has a good point, which she said, like, I think like a lot of that is from like the terribleness of corporate, where it is used in that kind of like weaponizing way. And so then we all have like trauma from it. Yeah, just as the talk have been through that awkwardness. Exactly. Which is why we make it such a point to do that and to say it all the time, and to encourage our team members to even ask for it, or to like learn how they could come to us for it or whatever, because we just don't want it to feel like it like being like this, like, Megan, we need to talk tomorrow kind of thing. Cause like, ew, right? I don't want to do that. She doesn't want to have that. Like, nobody wants, right? But like it's just part of like our dialogue and how we operate. Yeah. Oh shoot, I missed that, Mandy. I saw Michelle says that was awful. Oh, sure, like a terrible talk experience. But yeah, so normalize that. Tell your team they can ask you for it. Like, make it a whole big piece of your business, because that's when things get better and better, and that's when it's easier to train. The other thing that we really focus on, and again, I think this is why it's so helpful to see that it's not just about the skill set and how you train your team to think about business is so much more important than like the specific of do they know active campaign. But like one of the things we talk about with our team a lot is how to ask the right questions and how they can take stuff to 80%. We just did a live stream on that. So if you want more about the 80% thing, it's on there. But basically, like, how do we take things to, or how do we ask the right questions of like Lacey or Megan to take something to 80%? And like, we really kind of help put some of the responsibility and onus on them to do that, as opposed to it kind of being like, I'm the bottleneck in the business because I have to like start everything, or Megan is. And I think that that's, again, it's more a fit and a mentality than it is like a skill set. But that's what's nice is like, if you bring someone into your team and train them up on that immediately, like they'll lean into that. Like they're happy to take ownership. Again, most of us don't want to feel no ownership over our work. Most of us do want to feel like empowered to like run with something and whatever. But I feel like we do the opposite sometimes as business owners. Like we feel like we have to start everything and it has to come from us, and like we're the only ones, and then our team get that vibe, and so they kind of lean back and wait on us. And it's like, again, it's mentality, not skill set, right?
Well, and I think that it's almost like I think that we often kind of almost like overcompensate too, where it's like, oh, I want everything to be really like, I want my team to like me, and I want them to really like want to stick around and stuff. So it's almost like doing like sometimes what do I want to say? Not overcompensating, overworking. There's a better word, but like,
I know what you're saying though. Yeah.
Basically doing too much.
Like trying too hard, basically.
Yeah. And then like really like, I think that our mentality is really to like give team the foundational things, let them take ownership of that. And then kind of like, they know that they're not necessarily expected to have like perfection on a project that they're working on, but just like take it as far as you can. And then they know kind of like the questions to ask, the stuck point, like where, like they're, how to kind of like communicate where they're stuck and all of that, so that we can kind of take a project or a task or whatever it is over the finish line, right?
Yep. And I think that's why the feedback piece is the most important thing of that, because it's like, if feedback isn't normalized, it's much harder to run with a project. Or if you think that you're supposed to get everything right, it's much harder to take something and test it or try it or whatever. If you know, like there's always room for feedback, there's always room for mistakes, like there's always room for correction, that kind of stuff. That's when your team can really run with stuff and create like more ownership and like excitement, I think, even for them there, where it doesn't feel like they have to tiptoe. It feels like, well, I know like I'll get feedback if I'm not on the right track, or like I know I can ask a question if this thing happens. Yeah. So funny. Emily said she used to be really bad at receiving constructive feedback. And so many people are sharing, like Emily says, so many of us have been traumatized by corporate feedback. Exactly. And that's why we're like, our teams are too. And that's why they're like not quick to run with a project or something like that. And I think that we're, as business owners, sometimes we don't understand that. We're like, I just want you to take this and like run with it. But like, we haven't necessarily given them the right backing and foundation and way to think about it to do that, where it's like, you can fuck this up and it will be fine. I will always have your back. I will always give you feedback. Like the stuff we didn't have in corporate, you know what I mean? Yeah. Clarice said it felt like such a life or death thing. Right. And so in your own business, if you can really normalize, like, it's not that big of a deal.
And just like making it not personal too, you know, especially if you do really vibe well with your team members, which hopefully you do, and you like each other, like obviously you don't want to set it up where feedback is personal or bad, because then that also starts to add in some like, you don't want to like hurt their feelings, or they don't want to like upset you or something like that. And when you can make it a neutral thing of like, hey, I'm not going to be mad at you. This is not like, it's just feedback. It's just like mistakes are normal, like that kind of stuff. And you can just kind of make it a neutral thing. I think that that makes the relationship that you have with that person even stronger because it doesn't add in any of like the, I don't know, just like taking things more personally where it doesn't need to be charged in any way.
100%. It's so true. This is a great question. Neela says, when I'm packed with a one-on-one schedule, how do you have time for team feedback training? Or at this point, is that now fully done by Megan? I would say most of it is fully done by Megan at this point. Certain things I definitely still will give feedback on, like in terms of maybe like content repurposing or stuff that like Megan knows, but just kind of has to like have my voice and stuff attached to it. But the thing that I think we do really well with that, and again, this is just very much like a teaching your team how to like think about things thing, is like Megan will give me a to do that feedback, and then she'll give me a certain amount of time. So like she might give me like 5 days to like get this piece of feedback done. So basically like what I would say there is, when it needs to be me, we really try to operate on like long runways where like, if we're heavy in feedback with somebody, we're going to be giving them stuff to do well in advance that doesn't need to go out tomorrow. Like if someone's like way past the training phase or something, that's maybe different, but like, we have a new team member right now. So like everything I'm getting that I need to like review for her is non-urgent things. So we like structure it like that on purpose. Megan, I think you could probably say more about that, but.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like, basically I would say I'm more in the like day-to-day feedback and communication and training kind of stuff. And then Lacey kind of like is the bigger picture and like kind of the, again, kind of like the 80 to 100%, like team and I kind of like take things to 80%. And then we give Lacey tons of space around the feedback and process there, so that is obviously still an important part of the process, but it's not necessarily something that, like Lacey said, is like a day-to-day, like urgent, like this has to happen right now kind of thing. Especially with newer team members, I think that there's just a little bit more, like more that goes into like more feedback that happens at the beginning. I just think that that's super normal. And so we try to really like create a lot of spaciousness around like, it's not something that's like, this has to be done right now and it has to be perfect, or else it's just not going out tomorrow or something like that. Like we're really like spreading it out and creating a lot of space around it.
Yes. Emily says that she loves that I get to do. So yes, Megan always gives me to-dos. The whole other point about like having a great team, which is like, I think like even some of that is like, so, I mean, obviously Megan's business is called White Space. So that's obviously a huge focus for her, but like Megan really sees her job and trains our team members to see their job as creating ease and white space for the business owner. And I think that it's so obvious when you say it like that, but I feel like unless you've been trained to think in that mentality, it just isn't how a lot of like VAs and OBMs are thinking about things. And so that's why it's like been so helpful for Megan to like train people in that way so that they can really think about it and think like, oh, how would this be easier for Lacey? Or like, oh, obviously she probably needs like several days to do this. Or like, how can we give her like, even like Megan is like very good at like giving me to-dos in a way that like makes it really easy for me to go find it. Even like, we need you to review this. Here's the link for this. Here's this. If you're looking for it, here's this. Like, and I think it's just like, have we thought about training our team in that way? Or have we almost trained them to be like really reactive or feel like they have to get things done as fast as possible? Or like, we have to look at like, what are we like kind of like saying is the goal here? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Everyone really likes that. I love that. Creating white space for the business owner. Exactly. How do I feel being essentially out of the day-to-day running? What mindset shifts do you have to make? I mean, honestly, it's just that Megan and I have like built so much trust together over time. And like, I really think that this is the foundation. I know that Megan is thinking about how would Lacey think about this. I don't feel like I'm not part of the day-to-day because I know Megan takes everything into consideration through that lens. If that makes sense. And so I think that that's why like this type of training is what matters so much in your business, because I never feel out of it. Like, I can't even remember the last time you made a decision that I wouldn't have made. Do you know, like, right? Like, it never feels like, oh, wow, like I'm not part of it at all. It always feels like our philosophies are part of everything. Our way of thinking about things is part of everything. So for me, it's just been like seeing that and building that trust over time and knowing that that's the lens that team and Megan are always operating through. Like, we talked about this on a separate thing, but we have like some foundational things in our business. Like, nothing is an emergency. Clients are our priority, like things like that. So like, I just know that that's how it's running and I trust that. And that's, I think, when it gets easier. But again, I think that's, I care so much about if that's happening in the business. Like, I cannot even begin to tell you how much I give a shit if that's happening. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I don't give a shit if we fuck up an email and active campaign, or if we sent out the wrong thing, or if we like, does that make sense? So it's like, I know all the like top tier priorities are happening because that's what we're prioritizing. If someone like is still learning active campaign and got something wrong, and that like, that feels like the tiniest blip on my radar. But like, do I have team members that get that our clients are our number one priority, or that get, you know, like the way we operate or whatever? Like, that's what I know is true. And that's what I always know is happening. So that, and nothing replaces that, I guess is how I would say. Do you have thoughts on that, Megan?
Well, and I think that it's almost like a bit of a top-down trickle as well, where like, obviously, like I really understand the way that you think and the way that you operate. And then like through that, like that's the way, even if I'm in the one kind of day to day, like it's almost like through me that team is still kind of having that same mentality and stuff, where like team always gets and operates through how Lacey thinks about things as well, just because that's kind of like such an integral part of the business, right? And just part of how we've always operated. So I feel like it's almost like, even if it's not like, even if you're not in the necessarily like nitty gritty detail of something, it's not like team is still thinking the way that Lacey thinks, right? And that's still kind of like just integrated through everything that we do.
Yes, totally. Yeah, Michelle said it makes so much because that you don't freak out about that, since you talk so much about results in your business happening in the macro and not the micro. Exactly. Jess says it's truly the heart that matters, because I think there are times those small mistakes happen and you know it's indicative of a bigger heart problem. Exactly, totally. Where it's like if, as an example, like I was saying, like the active campaign thing, if that was like a tech glitch or something and someone's just new and learning, I totally don't care. If that person like knows it and like isn't taking like any care or consideration into like getting our clients the right thing, then I will like totally have a thing about that, right? But it's like completely different, where it's like, I think as business owners, we can get so focused on the like nitty gritty versus what you're saying, which is like, sometimes a small mistake means something bigger, but like we have to look at like what's really behind that. So that's totally true.
Which I think also kind of ties back to the feedback piece too, where like we make sure that like if there are mistakes, and I think we've talked about this on another live stream too, but like we make sure that we talk about those, and we make sure that we kind of say like, hey, notice that this email, whatever, like happened here. Can you tell me what happened there? And often I feel like most of the time it's like either, you know, some type of glitch, or like, you know, hey, I made this mistake and here's what I did. And so this is, you know, how we're going to update the process moving forward so it doesn't happen again. Like, and I think that again, just like making it so that feedback is such a normal part of your communication, so that if it is something that is just a glitch, that's fine. But also if it is something bigger that is like happening, there's also a spotlight on that. And that's something that you're going to be able to see and start to like shed light on.
I think the other word that really comes up for me here is transparency. So like, again, if that tech glitch happened, it would be a tiny blip for me. But what is so important to me is transparency around what Megan said, understanding how it happened. Like, there will never, ever be a time in my business where like a mistake happens and I'm not curious to understand why. I'm not pissed. I'm usually not pissed. I'm not whatever, but it's like, but I have to like be able to have transparency to understand it, and then giving that transparency back to team where it's like, here's my feedback on that. Here's this. But I think like sometimes that's where we lose trust in team, is because we don't create that transparency about what actually happened. And so then it just builds where we trust them less and less. Where if we would have taken the 5 minutes to have that conversation about like, well, what actually happened here, we would have had a solution so you can trust them more going forward, or you would have realized it was like a nothing thing or whatever. But I think that, again, it's just like, I kind of hate this term because I feel like it gets so misused in the online space. And I also feel like it's like corporate trauma, but it is like company culture, basically, of like the transparency, the feedback, the how do we think about things, the stuff like that, that really does matter. I feel like company culture in our space, like, is like, are you having team happy hours and stuff? And like, for us, that's not it. It's more like, are we all like approaching things from a similar lens? Like, are we all, kind of like bringing that mentality or those values or those priorities to everything we do? And I think when you're bringing on a team member that you feel like is already trained up, you tend to skip those steps. Sometimes because you're like, oh, they got it. They know ActiveCampaign. They know this. Here are our passwords. Let's roll. And then you're like, why the fuck does this feel insanely hard? And I think that's why sometimes, right?
100%. And I think that that's just like, again, just bringing them into kind of the business rather than just a specific kind of arm of it too, right? Like, I do think that even if it is just a small role on your team, I do think that it is important for them to kind of have an understanding of the business as a whole, because that just helps inform their specific role and just helps them in, the way that they operate and how they're even just like communicating with you or other team members or anything like that. So that even if they do have, a specific skill set or something that maybe isn't necessarily like graphics or something, for example, like their graphics may or may not be influenced by like your business values, but also like the way that you operate with that team member and the way that they're thinking about things and the way that they're delivering the graphics and the way that they're like, all of those things can be influenced by the training and the conversations and all of that too.
Yep. I think about this all the time. I'm sure I've said this before, so sorry. But when I was working in the nonprofit space, within like the span of a year, I think I had like 5 promotions or something kind of crazy like that. And I remember when I got to like the final level, looking back, being like, if I had known even a third of what I know now, I would have done my job entirely fucking differently. And that has always stuck with me so much, to be like, I was a great employee. Obviously, I was getting promotions and stuff. I would have been an exceptionally better employee had I just had that much more context of like the process, the system, how we were thinking about things. And so I just use that thought process all the time. Like, bless Megan, I'll just like tell her stuff sometimes for no other reason than like, I think at some point it might be helpful if she knew I was thinking about it like that. Yeah, like, and sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. But the point is that like, you being able to transmit that information is so important, and not looking at it like, well, because team knows how to do this, I'm being assumptive that they should know all that, because like I knew my role very well, and yet all that background context was still missing, 100%.
100%. I think that it's just like like gives you more information and informs you in how your role and how your skills and everything fits into everything else. And so you just kind of start to relate to it differently, even if like the specific, like, again, like task doesn't necessarily change, but I do think like the approach to it, or, conversations that you're having around it, or something like that can definitely shift.
Okay, Mandy has a question. How do you transition a team into a productivity tool to streamline and increase ease? A productivity tool. Oh. Mandy, are you talking about something like, like project management, or are you talking about something more like time tracking or Toggle or something? Let us know. We'll answer that. Yeah, exactly. Emily Louise says you don't know what you don't know until you know. And over communicate, Elisa. Exactly. And with selling always. Yes, transparency makes such a huge difference. One of the biggest things Michelle struggled with in her 9 to 5, I never understood what leadership wanted. So we did all these really great things, but they never hit the mark because there was a disconnect there. Boom. Right. And I think like it's even the stuff of like what I want is what Megan, is always making the thing white space. Like, not to feel like things are an emergency, to feel like I can trust that the team is running and stuff like that. And so I feel like just like most training doesn't focus on that. It's like, I want this done right. I want this done. And like most of us don't even want that. We want like to feel understood, to feel like they care about our business, to feel like they want to create white space for us, like that kind of stuff. And so I think that's really helpful too, is like, as business owners, are we effectively communicating that? Mandy said like Asana or Trello. So basically, how do we transition team to something like that?
Can you repeat that? How do we transition team?
Yeah, I lost the question, but she was basically like, how do you transition team to a productivity tool, like to increase ease, but like getting them on board for something like Asana or Trello?
So I guess I'm not totally sure if I understand.
I think Mandy, what you're saying is like, team wasn't on that. How are you like getting them excited about starting to use something like that? Maybe especially if they're new or something.
Sure.
If you're not saying that, Mandy, correct me. But
I mean, I think like first, I think selling point of something like that basically is to keep everything in one place so that they're not like searching 10 different areas, or that not like, especially if you have multiple team members, so that like you can say, hey, we're streamlining this so that everyone is in one place and everyone's tasks are in one place, so that like it doesn't create a lot of disjointedness within the business. And so that really streamlines things. I also think that like within a project management tool like Asana or something, you can keep there's just so many like functions of it that I think are just very useful. Even just like the having a recurring task. I just find that to be such a simple thing that people can often overlook and be like, oh, whatever. But I just find that to be such a nice thing, because that means that your brain doesn't have to remember to do that every single week. It's automated for you to pop up. So I feel like that starts to create a lot more ease in just understanding what is on your plate, what's on someone else's plate, having everything in one place, having things a little bit more automated and streamlined and kind of like defined a little bit more.
Yeah, Mandy said that was it. She says they're a team of 10 and have lots of spreadsheets. Yeah, like honestly, if that's frustrating for you, I would guarantee you it's frustrating for them. So like, using that as an opportunity to be like, I can imagine how frustrating it is for you to have to look through all these spreadsheets. So we're doing this kind of thing. She said her team's just like afraid of the change. And I think that like, just like getting it back to like, and it's okay if you fuck this up, and it's okay if it is harder at first, and it's okay. Like, I really feel like that's always it, is like, how do you create that foundational safety? Because like anytime they're afraid of change, it's almost like, because I'm afraid of like what that means for my job. And I think as long as you can always come back to like, it means nothing for your job, like even if you fuck it up, like that's really like the beautiful part.
I think that also kind of like being open, like saying like, hey, throughout this process, I know that this is going to be a really big change and I welcome your feedback as well. If something about this is like really doesn't work for you or something, bring it up and we can kind of try to troubleshoot that and problem solve and see how we can make it work or something like that. Because I found that there are things where, like, for example, sometimes like, if somebody is just like consistently missing a due date or something like that, if we can have a conversation about like what's not working here. And then it's like, oh, because, like they needed an email reminder or something like that, then like you can kind of set up some of those processes for people, but it's almost like bringing them into it where it's not like, they feel like, oh, it's set up. And so I just can't have to deal with it now, but really bringing them into giving you feedback and kind of bringing that up in conversations of like, how can we really make it work for everybody too?
Yep. Totally. I love that. Okay. So I feel like I'll just kind of recap a little because I feel like we talked about a lot of things, but being willing to train and not seeing it as like better just because someone has a skill set. Again, both are good and both are important. And like, we're not necessarily against one or the other or advocating for either. We have both on our team, but just not feeling like we pedestal things of like someone comes in and knows all this stuff better. Normalizing feedback, knowing what you need in your business so that you can outsource it really effectively, like i.e. not outsourcing your power thinking they know better, but being like, I know what works really well. So what does it look like to help team understand that and facilitate that process? Having team take things to 80% and having like them have a really great way of like thinking about and asking questions that you can respond to where it doesn't feel like you're always the initiator. Training your team how to think about things. And then like them understanding the why behind it too. So it's not just like, do this thing because I said so kind of shit. Do this thing because here's how this like fits into the greater context of everything we're doing. And even how it fits into the context of the online space. Like, again, we had so many people come in that have like never been in the online space at all. And so that's a lot of the work Megan does with them too, is just to help them understand like what's normal here, what's not, like, right? Mandy says, I would love to learn about the 80% idea. We did a whole live stream on that. So I'll come back and link that up for you, Mandy, because I think we talked for like an hour about that.
I think it might have been our last one. I can't remember.
I think it might be. Yeah. I'll find it, Mandy, and link it up for you.
I can't remember the exact question, but someone at the beginning had a question about our calls and call topics.
Yes. Look at you. I knew you would remember.
I wrote it down.
I think what we do is a combination. Like, I think that we meet bi-weekly, and most of the time bi-weekly, it's more like what's on deck, what's coming up, like what do we need to touch base on. And then I think we also do a good job of having like other time set aside, maybe like twice a year, maybe quarterly, depending on how busy we are, or what we have going on, about like bigger vision topics. Like, this is just an example that we did recently, but like, we set aside an intensive block of like 90 minutes or whatever for us to talk about just my maternity leave. It wouldn't have made sense for us to try to dive into that on our bi-weekly call because we have the day-to-day shit going on there. So I think like that's something I would think about, like, how do you almost like create separate intentional containers for each thing? Megan, obviously feel free to like give your feedback from that point of view too. But for me, it's much easier because I like know what headspace to be in coming to a call. And that makes a big difference in my day, honestly, when like I have a lot of things going on or a lot of things spinning. I'm like, okay, we're coming to this call to talk about this specific thing or this type of thing, versus it almost being like we have like 10 tabs open in one call.
I mean, exactly the same for me too, as far as like, it basically helps to not be context switching between like big picture, like vision, long-term planning type of stuff. And then like, hey, what is this like very specific question or something like that? Like, I just feel like it's a different headspace that you have to bring to that conversation. So it's just useful to have like designated time blocks for those. What?
I'm laughing because thank you, Michelle, as always. Michelle says, Megan, that is a future live stream I would love to see, preparing your business and team for maternity leave.
Yes.
And basically the second I knew I was going to have a maternity leave, I've been like harassing Megan to make a maternity leave template. So you just like really helped me seal the deal, Michelle.
Nail in the coffin. What's happening now?
Coming at ya. That's so funny. Speaking of things that I have been harassing Megan to create, I am so excited that Megan gets to share this today. I'm acting like it's me that gets to share it, but because this is also something I've been harassing her to create for a long time, because I think it is like hands down the most needed thing in our space right now. You're like, John McQueen. Okay, but tell us.
No, it really is. I'm super excited about it. So I've created a program where essentially I am providing all of the resources to train your team for you. So I'm calling it the Team Empowerment Program. And essentially it's taking all of the things and the concepts that we really believe in team training and team empowerment, and really like letting your team support you and give you that white space, and really helping them take ownership of projects, really lead, like take a bigger, just like a more, I don't know, like a higher level role in your business, and really step into growing with the business even more, and really being super invested in you and the business and their role and all of that. And so really just giving them all of the trainings and materials and guidance to really help support them into stepping into that role within your business.
So one of the reasons I've been like harping on Megan lovingly to create this for a long time is because we've actually done this behind the scenes a lot. Previously, Megan offered this as an intensive to some of my clients. We have done like team like facilitation with some of my clients' teams, that kind of stuff. And like Megan just does such a phenomenal job of helping the team think about how they're thinking about their tasks. And I just like have seen that for years, being like I can think of like 3 people that we did that with who like that like changed the game in their business when their team was able to like think higher level like that. And so just like so excited for this to be accessible, and like obviously so happy that you would always do it for my clients, but like so happy for this to be like accessible in a different way. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also just like so important.
Sounds amazing. Woohoo. Yes, everyone's loving this.
I'm so excited. I feel like it's just one of those things too, where I think that there are a lot of people who really want to be in the support role. Like I have always said, like, I want to be an OBM. I will be one forever. Like that's the role that I really like to be in. And I think that a lot of the time, like, you just don't necessarily know how to step into that and how to really like lean into that, or have the permission to really feel like that's like a really great path forward. And so I really wanted to provide that for team members through this program, because I feel like, you know, I just think that there's so much value in having really great team communications and team systems and processes. And I really see that being kind of the number one indicator of like how much ease and space and like enjoyment there is in business, with like enjoying your team and your team enjoying you and wanting to stick around and all of that. And so I really wanted to just like pour all of that knowledge and all of those resources into one space to really like help share that with everybody.
And I think what's so helpful about it too is that, like, you know, I think there are definitely great resources for BAs and OBMs that want to like grow their business and stuff, but I don't think there are great resources at all in our space if they're trying to learn just like, hey, like I have this one role and I already really like it. Like, how do I just learn how to do this one really well? Like, you know, I mentioned that I have an amazing team member that is one of my cousins. Like, she doesn't want to work for anyone else or take on multiple roles. Like, she's a full-time mama. Like, she just wants to do this on naps when she can. And so she just needed a resource to be like, how do I do this really well and like learn what I need to learn about this, but not have to like also like learn all these other pieces around like, how am I supposed to grow it and scale it and whatever, like that, when she doesn't want to do that. So I think like that's really valuable too, is to just be like, we might all have someone in our life or already on our team that just needs these resources and they just don't exist right now. And again, as a business owner, you don't, like, I can't be the one doing that for every one of our team members as much as I would love to be. Like, that's completely unrealistic. So I think that's another problem of it too.
And I really hear from a lot of people, like a lot of business owners who really want their team to be able to come to them with things like, hey, like, I really like, obviously, like we want to set up systems and processes. We want to set up like all of these things in the business. But like, I mean, when you're running a business, you also don't necessarily have the time and space to be leading all the like and spearheading all those projects. And so really like giving team a lot more permission, a lot more resources to be able to kind of be the starter of that. And kind of what we were talking about earlier, of being the one who can really take something into 80% and then bring it to the business owner and be like, hey, here are some ideas, here are some things, like, how can you take this over the edge to kind of like round this out?
Yep. So good. Also, I know you are going to eye roll me, but I have to say this. It is also the most reasonably priced thing of all time ever. Just so we're clear. Y'all can thank Megan for that one. I had nothing to do with that. I think it should be 500 times more than it is. But seriously, it's $997 right now, which is insane. And you can put multiple team members through. Do you want to explain that part actually?
Yes. So basically the way that I think about it is that you're essentially buying the program for the business. And so then any of your team members that are within your business, like whether they're on your team now or a new hire that you bring on to your team leader, you can put those team members through the program. So it's essentially like a resource and an asset for the business, which I think is great too, because like you can obviously like put everyone on your team through it to make sure that you have just like cohesion, everyone's on the same page. And you can like, especially like once you start to put your first few team members through it, they can create a lot of the resources for the business that then other team members have more of those resources for them too.
Yeah. Also, can we just like math that for a minute? If you put 10 team members through this, it's like $100 a team member, which is freaking wild.
Yes.
Megan's like, I'm not raising the price yet. Shut the fuck up, Lacey.
So it's $997 until November 1st. And then November 1st, it's $1497, which still obviously is probably more reasonable than Lacey. But also, so part of the bonuses that you get when you sign up right now too, is that I'm going to be having I'm calling it the right hand mentorship community. So basically like a small community for the, right hand people, OBMs, VAs, et cetera, to just have like a little bit of a space for further support. We'll do monthly office hours and just obviously a Facebook group to have kind of that day-to-day interaction, a place to ask questions, a place to just like kind of connect with other people in the space and just kind of normalize the, support around the support role kind of thing a little bit more too. But right now I'm offering free membership into that until February 2022.
Which is, again, mind-blowing and amazing. But yeah, like I think that sometimes your team needs someone other than you. Megan and I talk about this a lot. Sometimes that's why we've done the support piece for my clients. Sometimes too, is because like their OBM just needs to hear it from Megan and not them, or their OBM just needs to like vent to Megan and like not them, and I think that is just like insanely valuable. It's like why we have our masterminds and business coaching and all of that stuff. And I think like there is nothing right now for that support person. I mean, there is in terms of like wanting to grow your business, but not in terms of like this kind of stuff, I think. And so that's what's so exciting about this. So I'm just so proud of you for making this a thing and like giving it to the world because it needs it. So if you guys are interested, where should they go?
You can go to whitespace.team/training. and it is all on there. If you have questions, I mean, obviously feel free to reach out to me too. You can send me a message on Facebook, on Instagram, email me, Megan@whitespace.team. I'm super happy to chat and just kind of like answer any other questions, or if you're not sure if it's a good fit for your business or a specific team member or situation or something, just let me know. I'm happy to talk through that.
Yeah, same. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to answer any questions too. I am obviously not an affiliate. I am just Megan's biggest fan. But if you have any questions for me around, like if you want to understand if I think it would be a good fit for your team or whatever, feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions too.
Beautiful.
So excited.
And we'll be giving away a one of my hiring templates. So that will pop into the comments. I don't know. When do you do that? Next day? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maternity leave template coming at you.
Coming soon.
All right. I love you. Thank you for being here as always, Megan.
Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful for you. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.